I'd like to, in this video, do a quick walkthrough of Ultrix-11. So that is brand name Unix from DEC. So BSD-ish Unix from the mid-80s, but for the PDP-11. It's pretty cool. We'll go through it to see the installation process. I mean, it's pretty polished for it being something that would run in a PDP-11. They weren't big machines. Great platform, prolific platform. But we're going to set it up. It'll have maybe, say 3 or 4 megs of memory. And you get a decent, mid 80s, like 83 to 85, sometime in there, era system. So let's get cracking and start with a configuration. So first disk is going to be an RD54. Attach an image. I did not remember what the name of my tape file was here. We'll copy that. And I'm going to attach for TQ0, so the tape is going to be TK50. To attach that, give ourselves an 1173, 4 megs. I think that was the most it could take. I don't know, maybe someone can leave a comment if they know if the 1173 takes more. So as we could have done an 1183, but I know this will work on an 1173 from the spec. And we'll give it some Ethernet because we get TCP out of here, so it'll be pretty cool. And let's fire it up. Boot off the tape. And boot. Next stage of bootloader. So this is what I thought was pretty cool when I went through this, is that you have a nice interactive installation program. Contrast this with some others around the same era. It's pretty impressive. So obviously designed for end user simplicity. Some of the other BSD releases, even around the same era, maybe for the VAX, not quite so polished. So I like it. So we'll see how it goes. And this is just going to be kind of walking through the installation, getting it set up. And one of the things maybe I haven't explained it is I'm trying to get a lot of these machines either under emulation or physical, and trying to do some comparisons here. And this one's going to be a bit of an outlier, obviously. PDP-11, it's emulated, 16-bit system, 4 megs memory, so it's going to be pretty tiny. But try to map through some of the histories of features, get a matrix of features and performance here, and hopefully have some interesting results and some fun playing along the way. I am an 1173 system disk type. We're an RD54. So one of the things, and I don't know, maybe something interesting to look at is, if you can see here, sorry to switch tabs, the Ultrix-11 FPGA board is available, and so this is the cheapest $99 evaluation board for any of the Series 7 FPGAs from Xilinx, and it's got a pretty beefy FPGA on it. So looking at getting one of those, but one of the things that would be interesting is actually doing a HDL implementation of a PDP on there. I could probably squeeze one on one of my existing FPGAs, but that would give a little bit more room. But nice here, supports RLO2. I think one of the open cores, PDP-11, supports the RLO2, so that is an aside. Of course, we don't want bad blocks because it's not the 80s anymore, thankfully. and it's going to restore some stuff off the tape to generate our base system. And the next couple steps is going to be booting in and configuring a kernel, which I thought was fun. They have a nice little tool to configure the kernel. I have gone through this before, and this was, I guess, last week. I was bored and I'm playing around with it. I'm like, I went through it. I'm like, this is pretty nifty. I really should make a video about this, which I wasn't planning to because I wasn't thinking, hey, PDP-11 Unix, how exciting could it be? It is still an antique, so don't expect too much. And as you know, I've been dealing with the SunOS 4 stuff, which is also an antique, but this is a whole 10 years earlier, and it's pretty nice. Plus, also flex a little bit of SimH, which you know I love. So I don't know about these errors, if I had something wrong with the tape preparation code, but it seems to work even with those errors. We're going to stop the simulator and boot off our hard drive, our emulated hard drive. And so you see here we have our 3 phases, and we'll just go through here and it'll answer some questions. I mean, to give an idea how old it is it a video terminal? Yes, and I am an 1173 with a TK50 and an RD54. So a lot of yes/no answers here, and yeah, VT100 at 60 Hertz. I think SimH does it at 60 Hertz, but I don't think it's going to matter too much. Okay, 6. So the one annoyance here with their installation script is a lot of confirmation, right? Whereas, again, pretty early on, 80s era, is that now people said, okay, fill out a page and then confirm the page of answers rather than confirm each one. And 31, obviously not Y2K compliant. I don't know, they probably weren't even thinking about that in 1983 or whenever this was. So, Ultrix came out in 2 flavors in the beginning. It was Ultrix-11 for the PDP-11, obviously. Ultrix-32 for the VAX. Ultrix-32 eventually became just Ultrix in later releases. They were side by side for a while. And then Ultrix line, as we saw in a previous video, went all the way up to the mid-90s. So around the era of SunOS 4, early Solaris 2 series, 2.2 or whatever. Now I have some real VAX hardware. I don't know if there's any interest in doing Ultrix on real VAX, Ultrix-11 on a PDP HDL implementation of the VAX. Let's give it a couple syncs. You always got to do the Tony Orlando method of syncing. And users not mounted. So we're going to have to run sysgen here. And we're going to want to create a kernel configuration. And again, a lot of this is just confirming what it already knows. So okay, so here it could do an 83 or an 84 in the processor, and all the way down to a 23. So pretty wide range. And I think the open cores PDP does an 1170. So that may be interesting to look at that. I do need to get one of those RD boards. I've never used the Vivado suite, and that's what... oh, my brain is fried. Too late at night here. But the Series 7 FPGAs and SoCs like the Zinc, I'll use the Vivado suite. And for Xilinx stuff, I've only ever used ISE, which is for their older series chips. So I have 4 megs of memory. I'm not going to mess with any of these defaulted options, but I know that this should be that. Seems to work. I tried the RQDX2 and had an error, so we'll do that. No drive 1. And you can look up, you can pull these addresses out of SimH if you do a show dev. You'll be able to get the CSRs and vectors for your various peripherals. And we have a TK50. It's unit 0. We're going to want to put crashes on the TK50 because there's not a whole lot of space on the RD54. Pretty small. And we don't care about line printers or serial lines. Photo type setting. Our CPU has floating point. I guess that's what makes it a 73. We don't want that. We do want TCP. We are a NA type. And again, all the defaults here work for me. Again, the modern interface would do this a little bit better, but again, not bad. So there's probably some tweaking here that can be done. And now we have to build our kernel, which is make. So I'm going to make our kernel here. Running pretty quick kernel build, huh? So I don't know. I've benchmarked the SimH VAX, right? So doing a microVAX 3900, and you know, with trying to optimize compiler settings on my AMD 8350 at about 4.5 gigahertz, 4.4, I can get about 40 VUPs, inexact unit of measurement, I know, but I've not benchmarked the PDP emulator, so maybe that's something to take a look at as well. Get out of there, and we're going to copy our new kernel. Overwrite the old kernel. Again, real system, you might want to make a backup. But as you see, we're, what, 5 minutes into this? And a lot of that was me yammering. And let's boot up with the new kernel. And so this should be our final stage of setup. Again, more questions. So it's got some confirmation here, and again with the date. So again, confirming what we set up in earlier stages. Called PDP Ultrix. We don't want to print spooler printer point. We do want to use our file system, right? We want some space to put stuff. And again, the default partitioning here is kind of tight on user. So use 3. Pretty snappy. So now on our FS tab, we've got root, user, and home, what they call user 1. And we do want some optional software. So let's get a list. And we're going to want dictionary, docprep, Fortran. We want the manuals, and TCP/IP. I don't know why I wanted docprep, but we'll get the dictionary as well. Do we want games? Yeah, let's get games. Get the manuals and TCP/IP. And the symbolic links lets you put things on different file systems. We're going to all see if it'll fit in user. And hopefully it will. So what I found out when I ran through it earlier, and I'm assuming it's in there because of the descriptions here, is I thought manuals would have it, but obviously, right, so they put ROF and all the typesetting stuff in docprep. So you get man pages, but you can't format them. Not the wisest move. There, so there we go. No space. See if we can get TCP/IP. Okay, so dictionary, too much. Put too much stuff on there. It's a small disk. I don't know. RD54, around 100 and some megabytes. Not very big. And of course, we partitioned it. So, what was that? Where's user? That should be user. Is that 1.5 megs or is that user? 8 megs? Pretty small. So I think we are done with loading the software. And we don't want a symbolic link. No reboot. Boot up again, and hopefully it works. So now we're booted in, I guess, sort of a single user mode. And we get some messages here saying we've got, our actual memory buffers, what we have available here for user memory. Login as root. We have man pages. We've got a C compiler. We've got a Fortran compiler. More importantly. But what's really fantastic about this is your PDP-11 can be networked. So QE. So we've got QE0 up. And obviously there's not a whole lot of stuff here. So we can FTP. There it is. Pretty cool. And we get Telnet. I think you get all the rlogin, RSH stuff, which I really don't use very much. Hadn't used them in years. Those are really an antiquity. I suppose they still have their place. Reasonably unsecure these days. Wouldn't really be recommended for anything modern. But I know I had to pick some of that stuff back up. Trying to do a net install of IRIX on the O2 it used RSH, and had to use the Sunblade to serve that up. Because, of course, Linux being more about freedom than standards, didn't have a compatible Korn shell, or was it Bourne shell as SH, right? So whatever, the shell wasn't working. Whereas in Solaris it works just fine. But let's just test Telnet. And we can get over here to our Spark 10 running SunOS 4. So pretty cool. And yeah, we're pretty tight here. We've got 1/10 of a meg free in user. So I really should have looked into how to partition that. So what is that? 4.5 meg root file system, 8 meg user file system, and we got 136. So what's that? 148 megs, 150 megs on this RD54 drive. So next time I'm going to see if I can partition that differently. We obviously don't need 136 megs for user files here. What I'm interested in is I don't know if it has NFS. It'd be interesting. Yeah. Let's take a look and see what's going on here in the etc directory. Some pretty basic stuff. Remember, this is 16-bit Unix, so not too much to write home about. And following the old-timey thing, there is some stuff in Etsy that really is a binary. So if you see NewFS is in there, that's a make file system, and that may be a script-based one. Let's see what's in bin. So a bit more stuff here in bin. You get C shell, that's nice. And RSH. So a decent amount of stuff. Let's see. Seems to be working well. We get VI. Doesn't like my terminal for some reason. Of course, there'll be no Emacs. We're in user. We get our UCB directory. Let's check out games. Okay, so it comes with Fortune, but no fortunes. Okay. Banner works. That's always a fun one. Well, it would have been fun in the 80s to print your banner. Useful, I guess. Less useful now with how printers work. Okay, we got a quiz. Middle Earth capital. Huh. See what else we got. Hunt the Wumpus. So, we get some games. Not bad. I guess I'll leave it there. Not much else to say. I mean, we're looking at, I don't know, realistically less than 10 megs of stuff here. And that's including manual pages and development tools. So I think this is pretty impressive that you could get a Unix this functional, mid-80s, PDP-11. It would fit on what? Was it an RK05 or is it an RL02? I'm trying to remember which one's 10 megs or is it 20 megs? I don't know. You know, if I had actual PDP-11 gear, I might actually remember this stuff better. But you could actually get a system running on a 10 meg platter drive or a 20 meg platter drive, and I think that's pretty cool. So 16-bit Unix, PDP-11. So this one gets added to the zoo, and yet another column in the matrix for scoring my version of Unix Wars. Which one's going to come out on top? I can make some predictions, right? It's going to be Solaris, IRIX, maybe AIX. That's coming up. Are probably going to be near the top just because those are late 90s ones. It's all going to be broken into per era. So here, Ultrix-11 is going to be competing against Ultrix-32, and it's going to be competing against BSD, and maybe Unix v7, right? So this is going to be the ancient stuff, the 80s era, and the 90s era. We'll have an early and a late 90s. So early 90s is going to be things like SunOS. The later Ultrices, later Ultrix, say 4.5, maybe the later BSDs on the VAX, and then obviously the late 90s is going to be things like IRIX, AIX, and later Solaris. So that's kind of where it is. I have droned on long enough. Thanks for listening.